We are excited to have Jean Ryan with us here tonight to talk about how to be an activist. Jean became mobility disabled in later life and started using a wheelchair to get around outside of her home almost 30 years ago. She stopped working as a teacher in 1998 because of the horrible paratransit system and exhaustion to get to and from work. At that time, she decided to become a disability rights activist, even though she didn't know much about it. In 1999, she joined DIA, Disabled in Action, of Metropolitan, New York, and has been doing disability rights activism ever since. Today, she serves as the president of Disabled in Action. During our webinar, you will have the opportunity to engage in dialogue with Jean. So I'll make sure to unmute individuals so that you can speak with Jean regarding your own activism goals. At the end of our webinar, please check our chat as there will be a link to both join United Spinal Association Greater Philadelphia, as well as to subscribe and follow our YouTube channel where this and all of our other monthly webinars will be posted. So I would now like to welcome and introduce Jean Ryan.
Hi, everyone. Let me see. I'm just scrolling to see if, can I see people?
I have cameras off, but I'm going to unmute.
So I was wondering if I could see people, see their faces, because I don't see them now.
I can give that option.
Okay, that would be great. I think it makes it more like a meeting. Oh, yay. Okay, I see one person. Okay, great. This really helps because I'm not good at just talking to my computer or my phone. Well, probably I am, but not probably very coherent. So as Megan said, I'm an activist in Disabled in Action in New York City. And we cover the whole metropolitan area of New York City. And before I start my regular talk, there is a DIA in Philadelphia. And the email address for them is disabledinaction.com. And ours is .org. So we were started about the same time. DIA started in 1970, and I think that one started the one in Philadelphia started a few years later. But it's really significant to have an all volunteer group last for 53 years and be effective. So I'm proud of all the DIAs that there are. There are 3 or 4 of them in the United States, but we're really not connected at all. But we're in favor of each other. We're not in competition. We're divided by areas. So I'd like to talk about how to be an activist. The first thing you have to do when you're going to be an activist is see a problem. And I'm sure all of us have problems and know about problems related to our disabilities. And some of us don't know what to do about them. And there's some problems that are so difficult that no one knows what to do about them. And I'm not going to talk about those kinds of problems today, but they could take 20 to 50 years to work on. And it couldn't be an individual thing. It would have to be something that probably several groups work on exclusively. For example, like the nursing home problem and how people are treated in nursing homes, there are specific groups devoted to that. And Medicaid also and what Medicare covers. Those types of issues are really problematic. They're problematic when we have to experience them, and they're problematic trying to solve them. Some of them take legislation and really a lot of lobbying at high levels, and they take up so much time that when you do that, you can't do anything else. So not that many volunteers are involved in those really complex problems, but there are lots of problems that we can solve ourselves or get somebody to solve. So you see a problem, okay, and then you say to your friend or your family, oh, you know, the curb cuts are so bad, I'm just tripping and I'm just being shaken up all over, or can't get in the bathroom door in this museum, or in the airport, or in my doctor's office. I can't push hard enough, or the door opens in and then I can't get in because I'm blocked from getting to the toilet by the door opening in. Things like that, we can do something about those. And so I'm going to talk about that, but pretty much the steps that are involved in being an activist are uh, no matter what size the problem is, the steps are pretty much the same. So the first thing, once you see a problem, is to evaluate what needs to be done and what you can do. So, like I said, with something like Medicaid, there's very little that you can do to change the whole system. Probably nothing you can do to change the whole system. So you have to work work on a problem that's doable, and try to figure out what you can do about it. So let's say that you uh, can't get into the bathroom in one of your doctor's offices because the door is too hard to open and it opens in. And if you try to go in when you've opened the door, you're not going to be able to get to the toilet or the sink because the door is blocking you. If any of you use a wheelchair, you've had that experience before, I am sure. Uh, if you don't use a wheelchair, you probably had a door that was too hard to open or really difficult and you were afraid that it was going to knock you down. So, or you couldn't push hard enough to get it open. So I'm going to use that as an example, and then we'll talk about other things also. So you set a goal. Okay, my goal is to be able to get into that doctor's bathroom, not have the door be too hard to open, and have it be so that I can actually get into the bathroom. So uh, I'd say it, you could have that be a small or a large goal. I'd say those are small goals, and it might be two different things. They could probably more easily change the strength of the door opening rather than change the whole door. But you really want to be able to get into the bathroom, and you have that right to get into the bathroom. If anything is open to the public, you have a right to get into it. There are some things that the ADA says don't have to be changed if the entity can't afford it or if it's impossible to do. For example, if you wanted to get into a little bodega and they had one or two steps and the proper length of a ramp would be 12 feet long, you wouldn't be able to do that and they wouldn't have to do it because a 12-foot ramp would lead you out to the street, and you can't have a ramp leading somebody to the street where the cars park or the bikes go. It wouldn't be safe and it wouldn't be practical. It would be so long and the whole sidewalk would be blocked by the ramp. So you have to pick something that's doable again. So relatively quick or versus long term. Well, I would say that this would be relatively quick, but it wouldn't be in a week. It wouldn't be in 2 weeks. And you'd probably be lucky if it happened in 6 months, but you don't know. You wouldn't be in control of that. So, how do you reach your goal? And what are the steps? And are you going to work alone or are you going to get other activists involved? Well, if it's your doctor, if you don't know anybody else that goes to that doctor, you're probably going to be working alone and trying to solve this problem. But there are many problems that, uh, well, other people are having that problem. You just don't know who they are. So, um, but there are many problems that you would want to get other activists involved. And that's why it's really good to be in an organization so that you can get other people involved and you can get their ideas and their work. And then sometimes when a couple people show up, it makes more of an impact than when one person does, but not necessarily. So, next, okay. So I don't see the slides. Um, Megan, can you show the slides?
The slides are up on the screen. It's of the door. It's of the door that you sent.
Okay, I don't see them. So I'm just going to have to assume that, um, yeah, I don't see them at all.
It's the photo of the doorstop, but I can progress on to the slide that says set a goal.
Okay, so I just want to talk about that photo. I can't see it at all on my phone. I don't know why, but that's a picture of a door closer. Did I write doorstop on it? Or did I write door closer?
There's no
Well,
writing, it's just the photo.
oh, okay. It's a door, that thing on that photo is a door closer. And if now that you know what they are, you can see them on the tops of lots of doors. And they automatically close the door without a person having to close it. It's something at the very top. It's uh, it's hooked onto the wall right above the door, and then there's like an arm that goes onto the door, and that activates when you open the door. It closes it automatically. Many times when somebody says the door is too heavy, it's not really that the door is too heavy. I mean, obviously, you're just pushing it, you're not lifting it up off the ground. It'd be too heavy for that. But it means that the force of the door closer is too much. So it's pretty easy to either change the door closer or adjust it. A lot of door closers are adjustable. And the people that do that are the janitors or the people that work in the building that fix stuff. Um, so if it's not a janitor, it's forget what they call it, but it's the people that clean the building and take care of everything in the building. And even if it's a small office, a small doctor's office, or any kind of a small place, they're going to have, if they're not really handy, they're going to have somebody like a handyman who can adjust things like that or fix it, but they don't even know it's a problem. So if you go to them and you nicely say, I can't get this door opened, could you please get somebody to adjust the door closer so it's not so hard to open? You can do that. And the ADA has standards, and they have standards for the force of doors, not on the outsides of the buildings, but they have it on the insides of the buildings, any inside doors, but not the outside doors. So it cannot be more than 5 pounds of pressure, which is not very much, really, 5 pounds of pressure, but it might be more than you want or need. And I always say to people when I go talk to them about a door closer, look, nobody's going to forget to close the door in a bathroom, you know. They're not going to leave the door open on purpose. So you don't really need to have a door closer, but you could have one, but just have it gently close and not forcefully. So that usually helps when I ask for the person who handles that to, you know, ask them specifically to adjust the door closer. Now, if you're talking to a clerk, they're not going to know anything about it. So you try to get to somebody that's a little bit higher up, or sometimes I've even asked for the people that the janitor or the people who deal with fixing stuff, like if it's a hospital or some big entity. Um, but you wouldn't have to to someone in person, and maybe you can't find anybody that you just get all these people say, huh? That's not my job. I'm, I don't have anything to do with doors. Uh, and they probably don't. So then you can write an email or you could send a letter, you could make a phone call, and lastly, you could try to get publicity. But I'll deal with each of these. So an email, you have to know who to email. And sometimes they'll have a contact us, so you can do that. Send a letter. You can write a letter to the president or the CEO of something. There's a big museum in New York, the Whitney Museum. They have really tall doors that are in the museum, tall bathroom doors, and super hard to get open. So I couldn't get in the bathrooms. And then when I got, somebody would have to open up the door, usually a stranger, usually a man. And, they're not going to come in the bathroom with me, but I still would prefer to open it myself. So then I can't get out. I can only open the door a little bit, and then I can't open it all the way and get out, back out to look at the art. So I wrote a letter to the CEO of the Whitney. I just looked it up, Googled it, and I was shocked. About 2 weeks later, I got a letter thanking me for calling attention to that because they want to be accessible to people with disabilities. And he said that they would fix it within about 2 weeks. But then when I went back like a year later, and they were doing, they were installing a lot of new exhibitions, and the bathrooms were closed. They only had one bathroom open. So I'm going to go back when I see that the exhibits are all in place, and I'll check out the bathrooms and the art. And then I'll write a letter to him, telling him, either thanking him or, if something needs to be done, I'll tell him that. So let's go to the last thing, get publicity. People think, oh, I'm going to call 7 on their side, or I'm going to call that TV station that helps people and deals with that. That is really, a lot of people try to get on those, and they can only help with fairly simple things. So, and it's very hard to get it. So I think in general, it's better to do it yourself. And they're not going to really care about you not being able to open a bathroom door, because they're just not. It doesn't make for interesting, exciting TV. So, but it's possibility, but most reporters don't care about disability and don't write about it well. And we'll talk about somebody in a wheelchair being confined to a wheelchair, not using one, using one. Being a wheelchair user is the proper way to say it, not confined to a wheelchair, because who stays in their wheelchair 24/7? And who's confined? It sounds like we're locked up or tied down or something. So I think getting publicity is, even though I know a few reporters who are interested in disabilities and write about disability rights, they're not going to write about a door. They want to do something big like the subway system or the buses or paratransit or something really big. There was a new library that got built a few years ago, and it was supposed to be such a great design, really uh, the library of the future, and so wonderful. And they stupidly, and this guy had to go through a lot of people to get approved, and everybody approved it. They had the fiction section. You had to go up steps to get to the fiction section. So maybe you'd have to go up 2 steps to get to mysteries, and then 4 steps to get to, you know, romance novels or something, and 6 steps to get to westerns and thrillers. And it was stupid because people with disabilities couldn't get up any of those steps, and people who had strollers and had little kids in strollers, they couldn't get there either. But they don't have a law. We do. We have the ADA, and the ADA does not cover strollers. But still, our group works with a group called Upstand in New York City, and that's caregivers with children in strollers, because we have the same needs. It's just that we have the law and they don't. And anyway, they no one wants to have bad publicity because people can't go someplace because of their stroller. So they got sued, and for about those steps, and there were a couple of other really big glaring problems trying to get around the library. They wanted you to go by steps, and this is a modern new library. So they got sued, and it's going to cost $1 million to change the library. And I just saw in the newspaper that they sued the library, and the library is suing the architect for designing such a crappy thing. And the architect was complaining that his plan was so wonderful. Why should he have to pay? But architects sign something that says that everything they do will be up to code. And obviously that wasn't up to code. The ADA was written in 1990 and went into effect in 1992. So, he had plenty of time to learn about the code and about accessibility. So next steps, what you can do, if after you've written your letter, if you haven't heard anything back, you might try a different way to notify the people, and you could possibly set up a meeting. I usually volunteer, I just say, if you'd like to meet, I'd be happy to go to a meeting with you. No, no problem, because sometimes if you go to a meeting, you can say more, and they're not in a rush trying to read their mail, and they get a better idea of what you need and what they have to do. Now, if you can't get into the bathroom because the door is too hard to open and it opens in and it blocks the toilet and the sink, people are not even aware of that. I can tell you that this happens. I've had 2 doctors that had bathrooms like that. And one of them changed it right away. He told his higher ups, well, you have to change this because it's not accessible. And the one that I recently had that problem with, he's going to have renovations anyway. So I asked to meet with his practice manager. That's who you meet with at a doctor's office, a practice manager, and tell them what the problems are and what you think the solution should be and why. And if you're right there at the doctor's office, you can demonstrate how you can't get in. So what they have to do for a doctor's office or any place where you can't get in because the door is blocking it, they have to make the door, either make it be a sliding door, which is unlikely, or make it open out so you can go in and then close the door, and you won't be obstructed by the door. So you should set a timeline for fixing the problem. If you're meeting with people or you hear back from them or you get a call, you should say, well, when do you think this could be fixed by? Don't leave it open-ended. Make them feel like there's a deadline, and then monitor the progress. Go back or ask them if they did it. And then if changes are not made, contact the people again and include more people if you can. Sometimes people are just so busy, they don't, uh, they forget about it. So that's why you have to monitor the progress and, see if they say, well, we were going to do it, but we had a flood, something like that. Of course, you're not going to be getting mad at them because that was another problem that they had. So then you just say, oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry that you had a flood. And when do you think you could fix the bathroom door? And, work with them, make them feel like you're on their side. So those are the suggestions that, I would make for changing a bathroom door or any kind of a door. We the Metropolitan Transportation Agency, MTA, is what we have that does buses, subways, and paratransit in New York. And we have a meeting on the 20th floor every month. And the bathroom was not accessible. So every time I told them that the bathroom wasn't accessible and I showed some people the door saddle, which is the thing on the bottom, it should be level, but sometimes they can have a half an inch high with a little ramp on each side. They had a high door saddle, and then you could not get to the stall no matter how you tried, because the door of the stall blocked you. The door opened out, but it went where you were. So I kept asking them and I kept asking them, and this took years. And finally, one day I was coming up in the elevator and there was this new customer service person. And I said, Sarah, she didn't know me at all. And I really didn't know her. I just knew her name. Sarah, could you come and look at the bathroom with me? Because we need a unisex bathroom that we can get into. Because we're coming from far away. We're going to these meetings that last a couple hours and we have to go to the bathroom. And of course, she knows we have to go to the bathroom. Everybody does. So she said, I'm really busy. I said, it'll only take a minute. And I quickly showed her, she got it. And then she built 2 bathrooms. Well, she didn't do it herself, but she had somebody build 2 unisex bathrooms nearby, not exactly right there. And, we don't have a problem anymore. So, but you could do that with any door to anything. I've had so many problems getting into doors. But like I said, the outside doors, they used to have a number of pounds that an outside door could be of force, but they don't have that anymore. The ADA changed. It's not a static document. So I've had doors where I just couldn't open them. And so then I would ask them if they would consider putting in an automatic door. It's not a requirement to have an automatic door. We don't have a right to have an automatic door everywhere. Some people think we do, but we don't. But some places can afford it and they can put it in, and you can ask, and then you can follow up like I suggested in my presentation, and you can get things done that way. Does anybody have any questions, or is there any any kind of problem that you're really interested in solving that you would like ideas for? I had a problem at the airport. I couldn't get the bathroom door open. For some reason it wasn't put in right and it stuck. So the top of the door stuck to the door frame. I just could not get it open no matter what. So um I wrote to the I think I wrote to the airlines, I think, and then they said, "Oh, well, that's the Port Authority." And then the Port Authority, I don't know what, they said, "No, it's somebody else." So I actually had to have, what happened was it got way complicated. Somebody had to come out from the Health and Human Services from out in Chicago and inspect the door. So I guess when they were there already, they looked at the door. But actually, I got it fixed eventually. Um, there are just so many things that can be a problem that we can change. We can get people to change it ourselves without a lot of trouble.
Have you had trouble dealing with religious entities that believe that they're exempt from the ADA?
They are exempt from the ADA. We have separation of church and state, at least for a while longer. So the ADA does not apply to churches. Yes, I have not been able to get into a church whatsoever for a funeral. I've been had to go in the back way and sit behind a pillar for a wedding of somebody that I knew and loved. Um, yeah, all kinds of things. The only way that you can really deal with churches is to appeal to their better nature, you know, hope that they, love everyone type of thing, because and point out that they have um, that there are people who are disabled who belong there and that go there for different events, and also that as people age, they become disabled. They don't want to think about that, but it happens all the time. So, yes, I've had problems. I called the church a few months ago to see if they were accessible, and they weren't. So I went to the wake because that place was finally accessible. It didn't used to be accessible, and I had tried and I gave up on them. They were so nasty. But then they made them, I guess they missed out on so much business. So the funeral home, so they were accessible. But I have a funny story. A young kid, his dad died, and he was really broken up about it. And I knew him, and I worked with him on some committees. And that place was really inaccessible. So I called them and I said, "I'm a wheelchair user. Can I please get in some kind of way up to the second floor?" And they should have told me, "No, it's not safe," but they let me go in, and they had a really dangerous ramp to get to from the street level down a little bit, like 4 feet down. Then they had some kind of an elevator, but I couldn't even call it an elevator. It was like a pulley system. And that's how they would get the caskets and the bodies up and down. I rode on that, and there was nothing to hang on to, and there was no safety thing whatsoever. And then I came up through a trap door in the on the second floor where all the people were, all the mourners. And I thought, "Oh my God, am I going to come up right next to the casket?" I mean, I'm not afraid of dead people and caskets, but I just thought it'd be so inappropriate, but also kind of funny, but I I wanted to be respectful for this kid. He was like, a teenager. And thankfully, there were two rooms, and I came up in the room that had, flowers and people in it, and they weren't paying any attention. But it was so weird going in a trap door. And I swore to myself I'd never do it again, but finally they got an elevator.
I have a
Um,
comment. I recently worked with my synagogue to make the Bima wheelchair accessible. The Bima is the platform where the rabbi stands, or her pulpit is up there, and the Torah is kept up on the top of the Bima. And I
is that
haven't been
kind of
able to,
like the stage?
it's like a
Like, is
stage,
that, yeah,
right? And for many years, my synagogue leadership had been telling me it's too difficult, too awkward, too expensive to make this beam accessible. And anyway, we're exempt from the ADA and blah, blah, blah. And I told them we answer to a higher power and we should make it accessible. And I've been fighting with this, and it took me 2 years, finally made the beam accessible, put a ramp into it. The existing ramp had a 6-inch step up, which was no use at all for someone
right,
that's
that's
wheelchair user.
ridiculous. Yeah.
The interesting thing was, I asked you about the question about religious entities. The ADA says that they're exempt, but the township where my synagogue is located in, they would not accept our plan because it wasn't 100% ADA compliant. We were trying to work within the constraints of our existing space. So they de- uh, de-
They wouldn't give you a
declined
permit?
our they declined to give us a permit unless we changed it to make it 100% ADA compliant. Otherwise, we would have to go apply for a variant from the state, and it might take a year or more. And we didn't do that. But that was a hard lesson to learn, because we're assuming that it's exempt from the ADA, but it's really not true. If the local township could have, a requirement that supersedes the ADA.
Yeah, but the
We had
township doesn't require that it be accessible. See, that's the difference. They have standards. Okay, I'll give you an example. Taxis are not required to be accessible by the ADA. They were excluded on purpose. So there's no requirement in the ADA that any taxi has to be accessible, and most of them aren't. But if they are accessible, they have to meet certain standards. So there's the do you know anything about the access board?
yes.
The access board is what sets the standards, the federal standards for the ADA, for how things have to be done. But so they set standards for taxis, but taxis aren't required to be accessible. I mean, I get it about the religion, but yeah, can't you be ecumenical? You know,
So I finally, was successful, got the ramp put in, and I was able to get up onto the Bima for the high holiday services for the first time ever, and had different honors. And it wasn't just about me. There were several elderly congregants that were going up to the Bima
yes,
with their walkers. Someone that
yeah,
just got out of a hospital or has been sick for several years finally, took her walker and went up to the Bima and had an honor for the first time in many years. So it's just
that's
not
so
about
great.
people with disabilities, it's about all of us. And, if we're welcoming and inclusive, we can grow our congregations as well.
Yeah, that's great because otherwise people have to stay home because they can't get there, can't get up, can't get in. There's so many problems. I know somebody who uses a wheelchair and can barely walk with crutches, and her church is not accessible. And she participates a lot, but she can't do everything. And I would feel I would feel left out if I were her, but she doesn't feel that way. You know,
Mhm.
I want to be inclusive. There are a lot of churches here where you can get to they have a ramp so that you can get to the main service area, but down in the basement where all the activities happen, no way. You have to sit on you can't use a wheelchair. You have to sit on a stair chair. And, what are you supposed to do with your wheelchair then? And how are you going to use it on the top and the bottom? So I wouldn't leave my wheelchair anywhere without me, and I need it anyway. So, and a lot of people can't get out of their wheelchairs, when they're outside. so it can't transfer. So yeah, there are a lot of problems with accessibility in churches, and my area in Brooklyn has a lot of churches, and they're so inaccessible. So I pretty much don't go to anything, if they're advertising. I pretty much know I can't get in. And I think it's foolish because, older people often have money that they could donate. And if they can participate, they might donate, more. So, is there any other?
One out of 4 people has a disability in this country, and if you live long enough, you're going to become a member of this illustrious group, and you're going to need these accommodations and accessibilities.
Right, but most people who are seniors with a disability do not consider themselves disabled. Maybe they do if they're in a wheelchair, but otherwise they don't. You know what they are? A senior with a little problem. And they don't want to be part of us. No way. And I think in some way, well, it's got a negative connotation to them, but also it's like, well, I'm not paralyzed, so I'm not really disabled. I could still walk some. This is what people are saying to themselves, or I can still do this or that. I'm not like so and so. So I'm not really disabled. I'm just, I have a little problem with my leg or something, you know. And I mean, otherwise we could be a huge group.
We could harness our political power. One in
Yeah.
4 people has a disability.
Well, one of the lawyers that we work with just got a new job working for ARP. And I said, "Oh, that's great, So I didn't know that ARP does lawsuits, but they do. And they join them too. And so she's going to be doing disability rights lawsuits for ARP. So, that's great. We're spreading it, spreading our influence that way. Does anybody else have uh, any questions or anything you'd like to bring up, like a problem that you'd wish you could solve? Okay, Megan, can you go back to the first slide, be an activist?
Yep.
Are
the
you there?
slide
I
is up.
can't
Yep.
see it.
Mhm, the
Thank
slide's
you.
up.
So this is a picture of us from last month. Every single month, people who are part of DIA and part of Elevator Action Group, which is a separate group, and people who aren't a part of anything, aren't members of anything, and or they're part of something, but it's not a disability rights group, we're demonstrating in front of the MTA building every single month at 8:45 in the morning, which, okay, that's not so early, but it's early if you have to come from 15 miles away by paratransit. And for people who are used to working from home, excuse me. But the thing is, people are finding that it's really fun to do it. And it's short and sweet, and they can do that and then go to work afterwards or whatever or go upstairs and testify because it's a monthly board meeting of the Transit Authority. And every month we're getting new people because they want the elevators to be fixed. We won a lawsuit that it took us 6 years. And we won a lawsuit that now 95% of all the subway stations in New York City will be accessible with elevators by 2055. I know I'm not going to be alive in 2055, but they're putting new elevators in every year so that they can have 95% of them done by 2055, and there's mandatory goals that they have to meet. And so our thing is, well, okay, we're getting the elevators and we have some, but they're often out of order, not working, and we don't know that they're out of order and they're not being fixed promptly. So that's why we're having this, we have a lawsuit. So that's why we have this this rally, this demonstration every month. And we holler, we don't have any megaphones, because if we have a megaphone, we have to go to the police and get a sound permit. And most of the police stations are not accessible. So we're trying to avoid that. So, you know, you can't really read, I can't read the signs on mine, but maybe you can. But I make the signs and I'm not good at it. But I figure, hey, somebody's got to make the signs. So if I'm willing, that's okay. You know, if it's something simple and somebody can read it, it's fine. So I think you have to not think, oh, well, I don't know everything that I could know about it, or I'm not an artist. Boy, I'm definitely not an artist. But I can take markers and write a few sentences and on paper. And then every month I just bring those in a bag and hand them out to people, and they give them to me when it's over. Except a few people want to keep them up for inspiration in their house. So you know, it and sometimes we've only had like 6 people there, which is not very many, but we just figure whoever comes, it's enough. And I think that's the way you have to think about it, not think that it has to be a whole lot. The way this photo is, it looks like it's way more, but we didn't have more than 20 people. And some people came late, so, 20 people altogether. So, but we have these chants somebody developed, and he wasn't going to be there last month. So I asked him if he had a cheat sheet. I thought he did, and he did. So he emailed it to me. So, and then I shared it with somebody who has a loud voice, because I don't have a loud voice. I mean, inside, okay, but outside, I can't yell real loud. And so some new person used to be a union organizer, and she started coming, and she has a very loud voice. So, and she was thrilled to be doing it because she just got disabled like about a year ago. So, you know, but this is a long-term thing, you know, to get them to notify us about the elevators and fix them in a timely manner and settle the lawsuit. So we can't be worried when are they going to settle. We're just doing this because it's what we can do. What else can we do about a lawsuit? We're not lawyers, you know. We can't fix the elevators ourselves. So this is what we can do. And we have vowed to be out there every single month until they settle. We don't care how long it takes. And we already did this for the other part of the lawsuit with getting the elevators. And we were out there, rain or shine, cold or heat, before court dates. So we're just doing it, and I think it does put pressure on them, oh no, they're here again, but, and a lot of people like to do it. So, it's worth it, I think. So it's different things that you have to try to get changes. That's what I mean. Like, this is a really long-term thing. And when they finally settle it, they're not doing much now. And when they finally do settle it, then it's going to take time to set it all up and actually do what they're supposed to do about fixing the elevators. A lot of times when you sue, you have to have a good lawyer, because bad lawyers aren't going to really do anything. And you have to be able to read legal papers, keep it to yourself, not tell anybody, because legal proceedings are confidential. So unless they file a paper, if they file a paper in court, then it's not confidential. But discussions are confidential, and you have to just kind of keep a mindset where you have your passion and you don't let yourself get discouraged easily. You just pick yourself up and move on, and either go to a different issue or just keep on plugging away at the issue that you're working on. Some people get so disgusted and discouraged that they quit doing activism because the change isn't happening fast enough, but that doesn't change anything. I can talk about one small thing that I dealt with yesterday. I've been going to this doctor and they have a tiny waiting room and there's no parking space for a wheelchair and I have to be in the middle, or really there are chairs in the middle. So I have to be in the aisle. Well, I don't like being in the aisle because nobody can get around and they're pushing me and stuff. And the other patients don't like it either. So I asked for the practice manager yesterday, and that was the first time I had. And they didn't first. I asked for the practice manager, and I got a supervisor. She was super nice, and I said, I doubt if you can change this because I've been trying for a couple of years. But could I please speak to the practice manager? And she realized it was that person's responsibility, and so the practice manager came in my exam room, and we had the best talk. And she got it. She knew it was a problem. And she said she was waiting for some official sign to come through. And I said, well, why don't you just print something out on your computer and laminate it and tape it up, in the time being? And so she did right while I was there. And she was super nice. I wasn't gruff with her, anything, because I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it would be nice, and then I said, and by the way, the kiosks are too high and I can't reach them. I don't know if you all have that problem with the kiosks, any kiosks being too high, that you have to fill out in a, like, what do you call them? Urgent care or your regular doctor, if they have those kiosks where you have to type in your name and stuff. It's a tablet up in the air. Well, they have to fit the ADA too, and they can't be high, and they are. So I think it's a lawsuit that's going to happen on that, but I don't know if we're going to do it or somebody else is going to do it because it's all over the country.